pretty interesting article here on The Intercept. I'll link it down below. Ida Chavez is the writer here, and it says the title, AOC, Nancy Pelosi needs to go, but there's nobody to replace her yet. I completely 100% agree with the first part. Nancy Pelosi needs to go. She needs to be out of Congress, obviously not be Speaker of the House again because she's so horrible and regressive in so many ways. But I definitely disagree that there's nobody to replace Nancy Pelosi. What does that even mean? I mean, they're more or less, any member of the Progressive Caucus, throw their names in a hat, pick out one, they would be more than likely a pretty vast improvement over Nancy Pelosi. So I completely disagree with AOC on that part. There's a lot of people that could replace her and do a lot better job. Pramila Jayapal, Ro Khanna, Rashida Tlaib, AOC if she wanted to, Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, Mark Pocan. Lots of options that would be vast improvements because they actually support things like Medicare for All, Green New Deal, canceling student loan debt, etc. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez believes the Democratic Party needs new leadership, telling The Intercept in an interview that it's time for House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer to go. Definitely agree. Schumer's trash as well. But the left, she said, currently has no plan on how to fill the subsequent leadership. I mean, what is really the leadership that Nancy Pelosi is providing is so stellar that it's going to be it's going to be difficult for somebody to replace her, to fill her shoes. No, that's completely misguided take, in my opinion. Nancy Pelosi is trash. Democrats lost again, more seats this election. They have a single-digit, lead in the House of Representatives in terms of how many seats they have, a slight majority over the Republicans. Nancy Pelosi was leader. Her failed strategy allowed that to happen, so I don't think she is some great, wise leader that obviously doesn't have the best interest of the working class. If you create that vacuum, there are so many nefarious forces at play to fill that vacuum with someone even worse, she told Jeremy Scahill during an interview aired Wednesday on Intercepted this week. Oh my God, it's like, what? You're saying, well, we can't really change right now because whoever might replace Pelosi might be worse, so let's just not try it. We're better off with the devil we know than some type of other worse devil coming into that position. I just think that's a sellout, frankly, and we should be fighting for any number of so-called progressive members in Congress to fill that leadership vacuum as AOC sees it. Pelosi cruised to re-election in a virtual caucus vote last month and will face a full House floor vote for the speakership in January. She is expected to remain speaker, but has almost no room for error after, this was alluding to earlier, after disastrous performance in the general election cost the caucus at least a dozen seats. With a single-digit majority, she can only afford to lose a handful of Democrats. Again, and that if they're so gung-ho on supporting Nancy Pelosi no matter what, at least get some concessions for supporting her. Like, people online have been saying, get her to call or have the Medicare for All vote on the floor so we actually have on record who is in fact in favor of giving people universal health care, so we don't have tens of thousands of people dying, so we don't have people going bankrupt, so we save hundreds of billions of dollars a year. Let's get those people on record, see who actually it's time to vote, who truly support that. The rest of Pelosi's octogenarian leadership team, Majority Leader Steny Hoyer and Majority Whip Clyburn, has held these top positions for over a decade and won their slots without any opposition. On the Senate side, Schumer won re-election unanimously. Then here's there are no viable alternatives for House or Senate leadership at the moment because the caucus current leaders spent a number of years concentrating power without any real grooming of a next generation of leadership. Again, there's a number of so-called progressive members of Congress who would be more than viable alternatives and would be vast improvements over Nancy Pelosi. Again, just off the top of my head, Pramila Jayapal, she would definitely bring Medicare for All to the floor for a vote. She's a huge proponent of that. Ilhan Omar, AOC if she chose to, Rashida Tlaib, Mark Pocan, Ayanna Pressley, and obviously those others. There's just some off the top of my head there. And then in the Senate, how about Bernie fucking Sanders? Like, that would be pretty great, right? Having Bernie in that position. Or maybe, Senator Wyden from Oregon. He's decent. Who else? I mean, frankly, there's not, a whole lot of progressive senators, I don't think. A lot of this is not just about these two personalities, but also about the structural shifts that these two personalities have led in their time as leadership, which have been towards the right, shitty, and regressive, not working for the best interests of the working people, but for the moneyed, capitalist, oligarch class. Structural shifts of power in the House, both in process and rule, concentrate power in party leadership of both parties, frankly, but in Democratic Party leadership to such a degree that an individual member has far less power than they did 30, 40, 50 years ago. Then wouldn't it even be more important to elect somebody to those positions who actually would be a champion for the working class and policies that help the working class instead of Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, who are the antithesis of that? I would say yes, definitely yes. This dynamic is what pushes the really talented members of Congress that do come along to leave or run for statewide office instead. But Pelosi has also indicated this upcoming term should be her last. Doesn't matter. I mean, she shouldn't be in that. She should have never been in that position, frankly. She's horrible. And the left isn't really making a plan for that either, Ocasio-Cortez added. So I do think it's something that we should really, let's not just think about it, but let's actually put somebody who's going to stand up for policies that help the working people as Speaker of the House. Thought the Democratic Party is supposed to be the party of the working folk. That's obviously not true, but at least we could get somebody, as Speaker of the House who would actually, fight for those things. I don't know. It's just, I just completely disagree with AOC's reasoning here. Progressives do threaten to withhold their support for Pelosi, Ocasio-Cortez said. Their demand shouldn't merely be for a floor vote on... Yes, obviously, it should be that along with a lot of other things, which is sure to fail. But, and if it does fail, again, that's fine. You're still getting on record that the bill now is currently like 108 co-sponsors. So if those people don't support it, push them to the left, primary them for the left. Argue in those, elections, this person doesn't want you to get health care. It's going to save you money. You're not going to have to worry about going bankrupt for medical bills. They don't support that. They're the radical. I'm the moderate. I want to make sure everybody has health care, and it's also going to save you money. Okay? Instead, she believes progressives should fight for some of the bigger structural obstacles in the way of Medicare. Okay, you can fight for both. Okay, it's not an either or, it's an and situation. And AOC is not ready to run for it herself. The House is extraordinarily complex, and I'm not ready, she said. It can't be me. I know that I couldn't do that job. I mean, even if she thinks she couldn't do it, I still think she would do a much better job than Nancy Pelosi. Asked about President-elect Joe Biden bringing in hawkish members of the Obama admin, as well as officials from companies like Goldman Sachs and McKinsey, Ocasio-Cortez said it's horrible. I agree. But again, Biden said nothing would fundamentally change, and he's definitely following through with that. let's see. She expressed frustration with congressional inaction on coronavirus relief and the failure to provide aid for those who are struggling, pointing out the GOP's barbarity and the Democratic strategic blunders. All right, so pretty interesting. Like, again, I definitely agree with AOC on the first part on the title of this article. Pelosi definitely needs to go, but I unequivocally disagree with the second part. There are plenty of people that could replace Nancy Pelosi, and that would be a huge improvement over Pelosi. Again, Pelosi is no friend of the working people, doesn't support policies that help the working class. She's a 100 millionaire who has greatly enriched herself since becoming a congressperson. And I mean, for God's sake, she's so out of touch with the reality of the working people. A couple months ago, she went on one of the late night talk shows and was showing off her twin, like $10,000 plus freezers full of this bougie ass ice cream that gets delivered to her, and they have to add 2 freezers because everybody in her house likes it so much. In the middle of a pandemic, when tens of millions of people are out of work, tens of millions of people had lost their health insurance, and Nancy Pelosi thought that's the image that she should be projecting. I mean, get the fuck out of here. There's a lot of people that could replace her, and that's what the Democrats should be fighting for at this point, in my opinion. Peace.